So they did an MRI, and the MRI showed that instead of gray, her brain was white. And they told us that's not good, because what this MRI picture is showing is that your daughter's brain has been wiped. All the cells have died. Your daughter is now vegetative for life. And our recommendation, said one doctor, is to withhold food and let her go.
Hi everyone, welcome to the episode number 67 of the 100 Successful Women, a Conversation to Inspire series. I'm your host, Vivian Pham. In today's episode, I'm truly honored to introduce you to another extraordinary woman who embodies resilience, purpose, and unwavering hope. Dr. Marcia Nathai-Balkissoon, or in short, Marcia NB, is not just a university lecturer, speaker, coach, and Amazon best-selling author. She's also a devoted mom who transformed her personal challenges into a powerful mission to help others. With over 25 years of marriage, a teen boy, and a preteen daughter with special needs, Dr. Marcia understands firsthand the delicate balance of caring for others while pursuing one's dream. Through her book, Lighting the Path, and the Special Needs Parents podcast, she's guided countless parents to give exceptional value to their families while learning to care for themselves. We'll explore Marcia's inspiring journey from facing overwhelming circumstances to helping others find their light in the darkest moment. Her story reminds us that our challenges can become our greatest source of strength and purpose. Let's all dive into our conversation coming up next. Hello, good morning from Sydney, Australia. I am so thrilled today to have Dr. Marcia Nathai-Balkissoon. Did I get your name right, Marcia?
It's a hard name for some people. It's Marcia Nathai-Balkissoon.
Balkissoon.
It's a pleasure to be here, Vivian.
I'm so excited to have Marcia with us today. She has a lot of golden nuggets. Her story is very, very inspiring as well. So today she is joining us all the way from, where is that place again?
It's a twin island country in the Caribbean, and the name is Trinidad and Tobago. We are just above Venezuela.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much for joining us, despite your very busy schedule, Marcia. So, first question, always that I have for the first, for all the 100 Successful Women guests is that, as mentioned, you wear different hats in your life. You are a mom of a special needs child, you are a doctor, you are a lot of hats or titles that you have, but who is Dr. Marcia at your core?
At my core, none of the labels are the thing. I've found out I'm just a human who has had ups and downs in her journey, and who has learned how to find out that she's enough, even with her flaws, and who seeks to help other people to see their own enoughness.
I love that, Marcia. I was saying that's so true. Everyone is just a human, and I love that despite all the flaws that we have, we are just a humans. And I love that Marcia was sharing that she is on a mission to help more people as well. So can you share with us a little bit about your journey? And I did briefly mention some of the titles that you have, Marcia. Do you want to share with our audience who are those, what are those titles or some of the responsibilities that you have in your life at the moment?
Okay, so that doctor that you see is that I have a PhD in industrial engineering, but I no longer teach in an engineering department. I now teach in a management studies department in a social sciences faculty. So even that is not quite the traditional thing, but I teach the crossover stuff like business strategy and health and safety and quality management, and those fit in everybody's business. So I like that because it's no matter what your qualification or background.
Mm-mm.
That works for everybody. But that's maybe the last thing that I tell people about myself. The first thing I tend to talk about these days is that I'm a special needs parent. I've been a special needs mom for 12 years now. And it's been a long, long story and a tough one, but big joys have come because of it. And I think a lot of today will revolve around me telling that side of the story. But I have 2 kids. My son is 17, my daughter is 12. And I'm preparing myself to say goodbye to him very soon. He's heading off to university. Feel like if my house will suddenly be empty, because my daughter, even though she's 12, is bedridden and brain injured. And so she is 1 year old developmentally, if we had to put a number to it. So a lot of the movement and a lot of the activity that I've had will no longer be in my home, and I will be spending a lot more time just at the bedside of my daughter. So that's a little bit tough to prepare for, but Emma, my daughter, is the most joyful little spirit that I've ever known, and she actually is the person that I learned about that enoughness and how to pick up when life crushes you, because I didn't think I could recover after all my dreams died, and she's taught me in a very silent but powerful way how to find hope again and how to see light again every day. Other than that, I'm a wife. I've been married for 25 years, together with my husband for 31. And what else am I? So business-wise, other than a lecturer, I run my own business. And I define myself as a speaker first and a coach second. I've also written a book called Lighting the Path for Special Needs Parents. And I think that covers the labels, Vivian.
Wow, as you all listening, there's lots of roles that Marcia is playing, and then the big role that she's playing obviously is the one that she mentioned. She is a special needs mom, and that's a lot of responsibilities, and she is despite all the challenges that she has, she is very inspiring. She's here to share her story with us. Thank you so much for sharing that, Marcia, and I really want to give my hats off to you for the great things that you're doing. And Emma is your inspiration. Oh, love that.
She is. I would never have thought, before I became a special needs parent, I would never have thought that a child who can't speak, who can't see, who everybody says would be vegetative for life, could end up being my big light and my big push to get brave.
That's amazing. So can you maybe share a little bit, how was it like when you first have Emma? It was like a lot, it will be great message, I think, because there are parents out there who probably going through similar journey, and they might not be as strong like you yet. They're waiting to stand up. So what are some of the journey like for you?
Yeah. Let me just say that if you listen to me today and you think I'm strong, that you're seeing only one side. And I break and I get weak and I want to give up and I get angry and all the other things that you may feel sometimes, I feel as well. But it's really important for me to reflect parts of this story, because that's how we hold each other up. So for me, the journey started 12 years ago when Emma was born. And she was born with 4 problems in her heart. And we were told, because we live in this small Caribbean island, that they didn't have the ability to do surgery to fix the problems when she was born, and that we would have to wait until it became critical and then take her and fly out of the country to get emergency open heart surgery. So we just had to sort of sit, and slowly she declined until when she was 8 months old. She went white one day and cold, And the next day, the doctor said, okay, Emma's heart is no longer able to send enough oxygen for her body, and therefore she's at risk for stroke or seizure, and you need to get surgery immediately. So within a week, she had been taken to the United States, where they had agreed to do open heart surgery on her. And the surgery went well, but when she was in the hospital ICU room, the doctors decided that she was breathing well, and that the machine that was breathing for her was not necessary. So all that sounded great. And so they decided to take the tube from the ventilator out of her throat and allow her to breathe on her own because she was doing so well. But they did it at 10 o'clock in the night when there was less staff around. And instead of just taking the tube out, somehow the doctor made a mistake and he pulled out the tube that was draining her heart after the surgery. And well, when he dislodged that tube, she bled out. And she flatlined. So basically she died on the bed. My husband and I were there. We had learned to read all the machines and so on. And so we ran out and we got the nurse when we saw the blood filling up in the container. And we said, something is wrong here. And the nurse said, yes, something is wrong. But before she could do anything, Emma flatlined and all of the alarms went off. And then the nurse said to everybody, leave your ICU beds and everybody come to this bed and save this child. And they cracked open Emmy's chest and they put their hand into her chest and they started to massage her heart, trying to get her heart to beat again. 20 minutes went by, they put us out of the room and they kept massaging her heart. We sat on the tile floor and we just looked. And when we saw that 20 minutes had passed, I looked at Sean and I said, I think we need to pray. I don't know what else to do. So we held hands and we just prayed and I said, God, give me back my child. And the moment I said those words, the machine started again and her heart restarted. So that was our big miracle, that Em came back. And it was wonderful, right? But Em didn't come back the way that we had known her. The day before that open heart surgery, Em had stood for the first time. And now Em came back having lost all her senses and having lost the ability to suck and swallow. And she started to seize. So her brain was just spasming and she was in so much trauma. Basically, just gave her so much medicine to suppress her nervous system and her brain. And the seizures stopped until 6 o'clock the next morning. And the next morning she was seizing again and they induced a coma and they kept her in a coma for a long time. Time is not something I have a concept of as I remember back. I think for survival, I had to wipe some details. But I know that 2 weeks after Em came back to us was when they finally came and said, we had expected her organs to shut down and they haven't. So we will check her brain now. So they did an MRI and the MRI showed that instead of gray, her brain was white. And they told us that's not good because what this MRI picture is showing is that your daughter's brain has been wiped. All the cells have died. Your daughter is now vegetative for life. And our recommendation, said one doctor, is to withhold food and let her go. So their recommendation was to allow my child to starve and die. But Sean and I were like, we never really listened because we had prayed for our child. She came back. And you don't stand there then and say, oh, well, my life will be uncomfortable, so let me just get rid of this load, which happens to be a child, right? So it wasn't even something to talk about. We just ignored them and we kept going on. But message after message came from doctor after doctor. Put her in a home and go on living your life, because your child will never do anything. Your child will be a log in a bed. Those are some of the things people said. And the one thing that I know resonated was that if Sean and I no longer had hope for M, then there was no hope for M. You know, if we gave up on M would definitely never move past vegetative state. So we asked them, would you accept M into rehab? We didn't know when we came back to our Caribbean island if there would be therapy, if there would be systems in place to care for a disabled child. We didn't know what we should have done or anything. So we said, you all have a whole rehab facility here. Could you all take M and us in for 1 week? And we'll learn as much as we can so that when we return home, at least we have some skills. And so that's what they did. They took her for 1 week. And they were going to take her out of the program on the Friday. And when Friday lunchtime came, she did something that made them say, oh, wow, there's recovery. I think she turned her head when somebody moved by with bright pink clothes on. And she was blind. So if she saw a flash of somebody moving, it means that perhaps she would start to see again. So they got excited and they said, okay, we're extending her time for another week. So we'll keep you all in rehab another week. And we're like, sure, we want to learn. And I think she did that for 3 weeks straight. So we got 3 weeks in rehab. And they did occupational therapy, speech therapy, physical therapy, trying to get her to, move her hands, trying to get her to make sounds, trying to get her to hear and see. We had gone with CDs, classical music CDs, for some very strange reason. I had packed some. That's the power of intuition, I guess. And so from the time she went into that coma, I kept that music on at her bedside, always, always, always. And I think one day we saw her turning toward the sound. And we realized, okay, little bits of Emma were coming back to life. It's 12 years on now. When Emma was 5 years old, she moved her finger for the first time. I made these, these Easter eggs that they sell in the pharmacy. I took those empty plastic Easter eggs and I filled them up with beans, and I made shakers. And I was making up all these nursery rhyme songs for her. And then I said, okay, it's your turn. If you want more, you have to move the shaker. And she can't see, but she can hear, and she was laughing, because by then she had gotten back a voice to laugh. And I stopped shaking the shaker and I put it on her little table in her high chair. And her finger moved like a millimeter.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
And I was like, yeah, miracles are happening here, right?
Mm.
A millimeter looks so inconsequential, but for a child who wasn't supposed to ever move, that was proof that you could throw out all those judgments. And now M moves her hands and brings them up to try to hit things if I put bright colors in front of her. She still doesn't see very much, but she'll see a bright red or a bright yellow huge ball in front of her. So sometimes I'll do that and I'll say, I won't say anything, I'll just put it in front of her, and you'll see her eyes dart it and then dart away. And it's obvious that, okay, she's aware that this thing is there. And then once in a while, I'll do that and her hand will just twitch. Like she wants to bring it to touch. That says so much to me, because one day she has a desire to touch it. She's beginning to move. And one day her hand is going to get there. So I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned in terms of her development. Emma's development is not happening on the timeline we set for children. So if you measure her by developmental stages, she's still not 1 year old developmentally. If you measure her by what they said she could do, the child is a powerhouse. She might be doing tiny things, but those tiny things are each miracles. So I remind myself of that when the inner critic voice says, Marcia, you're not doing enough.
Mm-mm.
Or Marcia, look how slow everything is. You know, she's 12 and she's prepubescent. Puberty is moving in, and my child still plays with 1-year-old toys. And I have to hold them for her. So sometimes that voice says, you know, Emma's struggling and you aren't doing enough. And I have to say to myself, Marsh, what if another parent told you this? What would you tell them? And I would tell them, be gentle with themselves. That makes a big difference to me, because then I remember, okay, Marsh, be gentle with you too, right? You deserve a little gentleness. And I think that's what each one of us deserves, you know, special needs parent or not, we do the same things. This is a human condition. It's just that these situations as a special needs parent, sometimes it's like having a magnifying glass, and it makes the problems feel a little tougher. But it doesn't mean that the challenges we have, we only are suffering them, because I think so many people have challenges like these. So Em has taught me so much, but the first thing is just to be gentle with yourself, and that just because somebody says the only way for you to be worthy is for you to be reading, or to have that certification, or to have this income, or to look a certain way, doesn't mean that that's true. That's their judgments. And you get a lot lighter inside when you let go of those judgments.
Wow. That's such a journey for you. Thank you so much for sharing that, Marcia. That is, the journey has been tough, and thank you so much for sharing with us the journey that you had. And how old was Emma when she was in when I had this episode? Was that like a few months?
When Emma flatlined, she was 8 months old. So she was still very much a baby in all behaviors, and she went back to being like a newborn at that point.
So she's kind of like a miracle child as well, because you had her back, God sent her back to you.
I do recognize that. So sometimes I say, well, why didn't you pray that God sent her back perfect, right? But he did. I just had to relearn what perfect means.
Yeah, that's so much learning from there. And it's always the lie that remind me as well, is that the life is happening for you, and she's there to teach you something, and you got a bigger mission as well. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Marcia. So what is a pivotal moment that led you to transform all of your personal challenges into a mission now to help others, special needs parents?
Big challenge for me was after Em became vegetative, she was declining for a while, quite a long time. And every day I would wake up and I'm trying to juggle all these things, right? Because we came back home in January. And in April, the hospital sent me a bill for $72,000. And that hit me really hard, because our currency multiplies by quite a lot to get to US dollars. So I had the choice at that time to be angry, because your negligence hurt my child and you're billing me for it. But being angry changes nothing, right? In fact, it takes away my focus, and it takes away my ability to be positive. So we just put our heads down and slowly paid, right? But it was just another nail in the coffin, because it felt like every day I was waking up and I was trapped in a life that I didn't create. I had all of these grand dreams. When I was growing up, my parents didn't take us everywhere and give us everything. We worked pretty hard. And I was a professional with an upward trajectory. And I had these dreams of giving my children so much more in terms of experiences and so on, and exposure in their life. And then once Emma flatlined, all of my dreams just went. They exploded, they disappeared, and my dreams died. So I was living in this sort of depressive kind of mode. Nobody designated that I was depressed, but I would hide from my husband how very broken I felt, because he was carrying the same load I was. He didn't need me to offload my stuff on him. But at 2 and 3 in the night, I would cry in the dark by myself. And I would pray to God not to wake me up the next day. Because every day when my eyes opened, it felt like I was going to live the exact same day I'd lived before. And that I had no control over what was happening to my child. That I was this failure who couldn't see to my child's needs. I couldn't help her to develop. Her life would become more and more uncomfortable. I would have less and less money. I'd be getting older and older. I'd be unable to be a good parent to her sibling, to my son, because all of my time and energy was going in her. There was no funding available to give him more. And I felt like I was dialing it in with him, and he had to sort of parent himself. So everywhere I looked, it was like evidence of me being a failure. Everywhere I looked. And on top of that, I would pass my husband in the corridors. He's going to sleep and I'm going to take over with him. Or he's going to work and I'm going to take my position with him. Or he comes home and he goes to M and I head out to work because I had changed to night work in order to keep my job. So it felt like, even my relationship was spiraling down with my husband. And everywhere I could see loss and fear and decline and not enoughness. So I woke up one morning, and as I sat up on the side of the bed, I'm preparing to put this cloak of doom on my shoulders, because it's just doom and gloom that I think I'm going to be trapped in forever and ever. But before I pull on that dark kind of attitude, Emma's laugh weaves through the house. And it's the loudest, most joyful laugh. And it just wraps around me and squeezes. And it sort of shocks me because this is about 7 years into the journey. And for the first time, I'm ready to learn, apparently. I'd never thought of it that way, but for the first time, that lesson she had been teaching me patiently and in silence for 7 years, I was finally ready to receive. And here's what I reflected on right there. It was, Marsh, you think you've lost so much. You think you lost all your dreams and you think everything went south for you. But what did you really lose? Not a thing, because the person who lost everything is in the next room laughing. Yeah? This little girl literally lost her brain. This little girl lost all her senses. This little girl is only now learning to swallow again, despite people saying she never would be able to. She's making sounds again. She's learning to open her mouth and take food in. She's learning to swallow liquids. She's even though people diagnosed her as blind, she's starting to look at yellow and red. So if this little girl is the person who lost everything, and she wakes in the morning, and she hears the birds and she says, what a wonderful day. I can't wait to show up fully as me. And I know that I am enough. Aww. And I know I'm supposed to live in joy and give all that I am. I don't need to be any more than I am. Then what in heaven's name are you crying about here in your room?
Oh,
that's sort of, it was like, finally I took myself by the shoulders and I shook myself and said, come on, wake up. And that day, the cloak dropped away. I didn't put it back on because I realized that if my daughter knew that she had a purpose and that she already was all that she needed to be, ever, then it was about time I learned the same lesson. No certification needed to talk about my worth. No big words needed. No fancy makeup or clothes. Because exactly who I am is enough.
Wow, that's so powerful and got me into tears. I love that. Thanks so much to you. Thanks so much to Emma for this lesson. I learned so much, and it's such a powerful word to remind all of us we are all enough. And thank you so much for sharing that, Marcia. It's like she gave you strength, and I believe that this message is going to give a lot of strength to others as well. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing that, Marcia. I love that you took off that gloomy jacket that you have, and it is now, even though it's still challenging, but you remind yourself of what Emma's love is about, and you have this mission, you bring this mission to other people as well. And you did mention that your definition of success changed, and your wisdom around that was changed as well after you being a special needs moms. So what wisdom maybe can you share to other women out there about redefining their success on their terms? Because for you, you did mention you have the success that you thought that it is to have that successful career, and how does that mean for you now?
So for me, in the beginning, in my first 35 years, that's before M came along, my first 35 years was spent thinking that success was having a good career. Success was making so much money and having this job title, etc., right? So I would have become a manager and drove a company car, etc., etc. And on the outside, that looks like success. And a big part of it for me was that my mother was proud that she had a daughter who could claim those things. Apparently, I was looking for acceptance by my mom to that extent. So I always performed high in school and got all the grades, and then that same kind of type A kind of perfection went on to when I was working in a job, right? So my father died when I was 35. I got laid off at the end of February one year, 2008, February, last day of February, I got laid off. My boss had a mental breakdown and he closed the company and we all got laid off. 2 days after I was laid off, my father died in a car crash. And so in one weekend, the two things that really defined me, other than my husband and family, those two things disappeared in 3 days' time. And Daddy was the person who was my staunch supporter. Whatever went on in my life, I knew I could count on him. But he wasn't there. And I had a one-year-old son, 1 year, 3 months old. And I remember feeling so lost. But actually, sometimes we lose big things and we might judge it as this is the worst thing that could happen to me. And I've learned to withhold that final judgment that this is bad. Because sometimes the bad thing that happens opens the door to the best thing that could happen to you. So for me, losing that job led me to say, okay, Marcia, you're going to look for an engineering consultancy job again, an engineering management job again. And I remember how empty I used to feel in here. Pockets full, job titles everywhere, but in here I was empty and unfulfilled. And that was the opposite of success. And so I sat there, I think I was in my father's wake, and I sat there and I asked myself, what are you going to do? Do you want another job? And it's fairly easy to get one. And the answer was no. When you listen, really open yourself up to your intuition. My intuition speaks to me here. I've heard some people say that their intuition speaks to them here, and some say it's their gut. Wherever your intuition speaks to you, quiet yourself, quiet your mind, and let your intuition guide you. And my intuition said, Marsh, you know this is not right for you. You can always perform and you'll satisfy other people, but you will reach the end of your life and be unsatisfied and you'll regret what you have not done and what you have not been. And so I decided to start a new career. So I started back from scratch as a junior person in education. I think my first salary was 1/3 of the salary I had had a week before. But my heart was full because I had wanted to teach for a long, long time. And I wasn't teaching, but a year after that first job, I got an entry-level job in a university as an instructor. And I worked there for a year. Out of the stress of the 9-to-5 kind of culture, I got pregnant with M. And the month that I was offered a job as a lecturer, I think within a couple months of getting the job offer as a lecturer, M was born. And then came the roller coaster of everything that happened. But for me, I didn't regret anything. It might have been hard, but my heart has been so happy teaching. I'm no longer as well off financially, but I'm a happier person because I love teaching those young adults. I love in shaping the people who will shape my region. It makes a big, big difference to me. But the biggest thing that this whole journey with M taught me was how to redefine success. And that was, my dreams had died. And I thought that meant that I'd never have dreams again. Because life was always going to be challenging. This is more challenges than anybody sets out to have. But no matter how hard life is, you still deserve to have something that you're working toward, that you're enjoying, some impact that you're making. And when I quieted the mind that told me you no longer have the things that you need, and to live in fear of all the things you can't control, because type A people live for control and planning. Finally, I had to teach myself to stop needing to plan everything, because I can't plan when my child will walk. And I can't plan if she's going to have a seizure or not. So I had to learn to stop trying to hold everything so hard, and let it go. Just let it go. There are things I cannot control. Accept that. Right? The prayer, Lord, help me to accept the things that I can't control. So once I did that and I quieted my mind, it opened up intuition. And I started to receive clearer connections to what I felt my purpose was, to what my calling is. And I realized that my calling was, you see that pain that I've lived through? I don't want anybody else to feel that pain. And a big part of it was, I don't want anybody else to feel so alone, so abandoned, so unloved and unlovable. And that's why I started the Special Needs Parent Podcast. I think we're up to close to 100 episodes now. And that was to hold somebody's hand and say, you know what? It feels hard for you. What are you dealing with today? Isolation, guilt, grief, anger, abandonment. Find the episode and know that you're not the only one walking this path. And that's why I wrote the book as well. So I guess I should show you the book. This is Lighting the Path.
Lighting the Path.
And it was written to say to you, I'm one step ahead of you in that dark, dark place. And if you look one step behind you, there's another parent that you can hold the hand of. There are thousands and thousands of us, and you are not alone. So take some of these lessons and you'll make it through, because you're not destined to fail. You're not destined to die. And hope is still there. And that's how I redefined my goals. That's how I came up with a new vision. And that's now what I define success as. Do I know what my heart is calling me to do? And even if it takes time, am I working toward that? That's success, because then I feel satisfied.
Oh, wow. That's such a beautiful sharing that you just shared with us, Marcia. So many important message there. And I feel so touched with your message, and it got me into tears a few times. And it's such a powerful message, and can see that it's so true that you are saying you are that light for people who has been going through that tunnel. It's like, I love the ripple effect that you're creating, because as you mentioned, you are the light, you're the first one, and there are parents behind that can be the light for someone else. Because you are that person, you be the change that you want to see in others. And I love that you're starting this movement, starting this podcast, writing this book for other parents out there. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much for what you're doing, Marcia. It's such a journey for you, and I know that it's not easy for you to probably to retell that story, to be in that to be that in that situation again. But you know that your message is so key for people out there, because there are parents out there who are maybe waiting for this message. And I really appreciate what you're doing, Marcia.
I feel, Vivian, that even if you're not a parent, I think everybody has these times in their life where they feel they're on this downward spiral, something went wrong, hitting rock bottom, and this is just my rock bottom story, but certainly it will resonate with anybody and say, hey, you could still get back up. And okay, you might have come to the end of what you think is your journey, but it actually is the end of phase 1.
Oh, wow.
So what is phase 2? What is phase 2? What are you meant to learn from this that outfits you with skills, resilience, a different vision to go on the next phase? And we live in ups and downs. Unless we lived in ups and downs, life would be rather boring. Imagine if you were in happy mode all the time. Happy would get old really soon. So life takes us, boom. And then when we get to happy, we're like, yay, this is how it feels, because I know how terrible it feels to be in the bottom. And then life takes us down again. But that's what makes life interesting. And that's what makes the journey worth it, because I'm aiming for so much.
I love that. I love that line, the end of phase 1, because that's life about, right? It's up and down, and it's a journey. We all going to the same destination anyway. I heard, I forgot who said that. We're all going to the same destination, but it is the journey. It is the process that we get to enjoy along the way.
Yeah, and you know what? My journey doesn't have to look like yours. We can both be successful with very different things in our life and taking very different paths. So stop comparing.
Wow, my heart feels so full listening to you, Marcia. It's such a great conversation with you. So, where can, at the moment you are doing speaking as well, as you mentioned, and how can people find you online if they are looking for, maybe they look for you for some support, for some advice? Where can they find you online?
I am most active. I have other social media, but I'm most active on Facebook. So you can find me there, and lots of posts that might give you a little support. It shows my very imperfect life. It talks about some of the pains, and it talks about some of the joys too. So you can reach me there if you want to explore how I could speak at your event, or if you want to just find out what resource I might be able to share with you, or if I could do some coaching for you, whether you're in a company or whether it's you or a group of people. I would love to hear from you. That's the easiest place. And then if you want to check out my website, it's not this whole long name that I have. It's Marcia, Marcia, NB, that's my initials.com. So that'll be pretty easy for you to find me, Marcia.
Yeah, I will include the links and Marcia's social media in the description as well. So whoever who want to reach out to Marcia, I believe that she will be easily reachable and to share with you more of her journey. I really appreciate your time with us today, Marcia, for sharing with us your journey, your story, and to share with us how beautiful Emma is, her inspiring messages, And this is a 100 Successful Women podcast. If you have to give one piece of advice for other women out there, what will that be, Marcia?
The biggest thing I wish somebody had told me is that just like you try to be kind to everybody else, make space to be kind to you. And sometimes that means saying no to a request instead of trying to be all things to everybody but yourself and pushing yourself off your own to-do list. Make space, schedule time for you to top up, schedule time for you to rest. Say no to the things you genuinely don't want to do. And say yes to the things that you're longing to say yes to and haven't made space for in your life. Because you need to get creative and to have fun again. Don't let your memory of fun be, when I was a child, I used to laugh and feel joy. Every day you should be feeling that joy. And that's my wish for you.
Well, thank you so much for that, Marcia. It's so beautiful and remind us all to put ourselves first and learn to say no. And because at the end of the day, when your cup is fuller, you're able to serve from, you can't really serve from an empty cup. Thank you so much for that, Marcia. So again, I appreciate your time with us. There's so many golden nuggets and so many key messages that you share with us. So before we wrap up today's conversation, Marcia, is there anything that you would like me to ask that I haven't asked yet?
There is only one thing that I'd like to share again, and that is for many, many years, it was uncomfortable for me to admit to how I was feeling. Sometimes our feelings are so uncomfortable because we think we have to appear strong and capable and competent and willing and all the other things, right? And it took my father's death for me to realize that I wasn't being authentic and I wasn't being what I needed to be to thrive in this life. And the only way for me to start opening up was for me to open a book and write. So I got a copybook and I made it my journal. And I wrote the things I worried about, and I wrote the judgments I had about myself and about everybody else, because when we are harsh judges of ourselves, we also are harsh judges of others. And I started to just let that toxic stuff pour out of me. And I was cleansing my inside because I was carrying so much horrible stuff that I didn't think I could express. Finally, on the pages where nobody else would see, I vomited that out. And I started to see for the first time patterns in what I carried. Patterns that had started when I was 2 years old. That I had been taught were expected of a good girl and then a good woman. And they looked so ludicrous and ridiculous written down on paper. The beliefs that I had and the rules that somebody had written and programmed into me, and that I had accepted and let people program into me. But finally, there they were on the paper, and I was able to say, I reject these things. These things are weeds in my garden, and I'm ripping them up and throwing them away. And I'm planting better beliefs, and I'm planting better habits. But it all began with me seeing what I felt, naming what I felt, owning what I felt, and having the guts to process those feelings so that I could clear them. Unless you do that work, and sometimes we need help. There's no shame in a therapist. There's no shame in a coach. There's no shame in a counselor. The point is, get help. And if you're surrounded by a circle who do not support you and who pull you down, time to do an upgrade to your circle too. Time to clear the people who no longer belong in your life. Because the 5 people that you surround yourself with determine what you rise to or if you stay stuck down there. So get some people who think at the level you want to start thinking at. Get some people who are chasing dreams the way you want to chase dreams, and let them pull you to their level. Rising becomes very, very easy when you have those kinds of mentors as your circle. Know too that there are things in you that are shiny and wonderful, even if you don't see them. So you will motivate others to rise as well. Start seeing that in yourself. And I have a free chapter in my book that you can pick up. So if you go to my Marcia NB, marcianb.com website, go to the very bottom of the page and click Give Me My Free Chapter. And what you'll get there is a chapter that talks to you about what you're feeling and how to uncover how you feel and how to start processing that. It's the beginning of getting you on this journey that I've been describing. So I hope it makes a difference to you.
Wow, that's so powerful. And yeah, I will definitely include that link in the description for those of you who probably never think of this as well, because there's some question that we probably never ask ourselves. And then journaling, it's such a great tool because it allows you to unlock, like you say, all the toxic in our mind to paper, and we are able to see that physically what are those that we probably never think of, and you're able to rewrite those chapters. And that's such a powerful word. Thank you so much, Marcia, for this gift for us. And I think that we all can definitely get a lot from that chapter if we download that chapter. And again, Marcia, I really grateful to have this conversation with you. And like you say, we are the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with, and I'm so grateful to be in this circle with Marcia and get to learn a lot more from you. Thank you so much once again, Marcia, for your time. And yeah, I wish you all the best, and do continue doing what you're doing. I believe that your message is so important, and spreads the message out and reach more people. Thank you so much for your time with us, Marcia.
It was a pleasure to be here, Vivian. I really felt honored by you. I'm so grateful that you invited me on.
Thank you. I'll see you next time then. Bye.
Bye-bye.